The main media products we looked at for this task was thriller films, as the task was to create a thriller film opening. Films we looked at included Pulp Fiction, American Beauty, Fight Club, Donnie Darko, Seven and Memento. Where we discovered most narrative forms, except Memento's, especially in their openings, were linear, and that conventions most had were low-key lighting, crime, urban locations, non-diegetic music, and enigma codes, because these were the conventions of the thriller genre. My media product mainly uses thriller conventions of thriller films, as narrative-wise, I use the generic conventions of crime and mystery, while also having a hero and antagonist. Mice and scene-wise, my thriller opening does have the conventions of urban locations, low-key lighting, cast and attached shadows, and signifiers to show who is the protagonist and antagonist. For example, you can see this in my first long shot of my character Angela, when you compare it to Donnie Darko, as when both characters are introduced, they wear a white top to signify their goodness and innocence, connoting them to be the protagonists. However, I do go against conventions narrative-wise too, as you can see this in my character profile. All my characters are female, and in my opening, they are the characters who commit crimes of assault and murder, not only defying conventions of having both genders in the narrative, but also defying conventions of having a male protagonist and male antagonist, and having males mainly involved in crime. An alternative example where I follow conventions is when hiding my antagonist's face in a mid-shot, where I develop the conventions of shadows to not only use as signifiers, but to create an enigma code by hiding the identity of the killer wearing the mask earlier on in my opening, like in the beginning of Matrix, where they use low-key lighting in a long shot of the police officers to hide the location where they are, which not only signifies danger and evil, but creates enigma code too, by not revealing where the police officers are or who they are looking for. Sound and camera-wise, I mainly conform. For sound, I have the convention of non-diegetic background, music to increase the suspense in my opening, just like Seven, Matrix, and Usual Suspects, to further incorporate the conventions of suspense in sound and camera-wise. By using close-ups to show emotions and handheld cameras to incorporate the conventions of suspense, which Fight Club does when it uses a close-up to expose the confusion on the narrator's face to signify his powerlessness and his lower status in the scene. However, I do go against conventions partly through cinematography, as sometimes I use alternative shots to show emotions instead of through signifying it. For example, I had an extreme close-up of my character Angela's feet running, which signifies to the audience that there is an urgency or danger within the scene. So, connoting that Angela is probably feeling afraid or frightened, which you could say other movies like Fight Club incorporate too, which Fight Club does in its opening scene, maybe to defy conventions, or to make sure they don't repeat the same style and composition of shots of other thriller films. For example, in Fight Club, before we see the close-up of the narrator's face, we see an extreme close-up of his eyes, which are wide, unblinking, while hard light is shined on the face to make the overall skin and eyes look more hard, more warm, more rough, which overall connotes a negative atmosphere to shoot, and signifies that the narrator is afraid for his life, especially when the shot zooms out to reveal a gun in his mouth. So overall, my uses, development and subversions of thriller conventions indicate that openings like Seven, Matrix, Pulp Fiction and Memento influenced my work, especially editing-wise, as like with my thriller opening, they all start off with a crime, whether being committed or discovered, and have elements of mystery to them, through the same format of my opening, Enigma Code. For example, Memento's opening starts off with a Polaroid picture of a dead man who has been brutally killed, disappearing in a slow edit, while my close-up of a dead body surrounded by police tape in a slow edit signifies murder has been committed. While my close-up of a dead body surrounded by police tape in a slow edit signifies murder has been committed. This not only shows both films incorporate a crime into the beginning of the narrative in the same format, but both create Enigma Code by not revealing who has been killed or how in the opening. Furthermore, not including Memento, most films I have stated show that I subvert conventions by having a non-linear narrative, showing I have defied a convention to create a form of narrative that creates tension by being non-linear, through confusing the audience, creating multiple enigma codes, revealing the disruption stage, murder and assault first, as stated in the narrative theory, before the equilibrium.
Emily thought they were her friends. She thought they cared. They told her she was beautiful, like a star shining in the night sky.
Overall, making me believe that my uses of conventions, whether following or defying, indicate my opening belonged within the subgenre crime thriller.